Despite the great economic growth that our country has seen in the last 5 or 6 years, there's a lot of misconceptions about healthcare. Somebody says healthcare is really improved in the country. Part of it is true, but there are a lot of issues still pertaining to the healthcare sector in India, and that is one of the reasons why there are so many startups in this country who want to improve the situation of healthcare. One of such is Vipin Pathak, who is the CEO of Care 24, who's come on the show today to explain to us, talk to us about his journey, what ails the India Healthcare Center, and what are they doing specifically to solve issues in India. Vipin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for this.
Great. So before we go on, there are so many things I want to ask you. This is such an elaborate topic. I mean, it doesn't do justice if you and me talk for just 30 minutes. But help us understand, what does Care 24 do? I know there is a part of the audience out there which knows what you folks are doing, but there is still a lot of people. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people in smaller towns who are going to watch this interview today. What is Care 24, and how does a person in a tier 4 town reach out to a Care 24? What do you do? What's your platform all about?
Sure. So Care 24, a very simple concept. What we intend to do is bring hospital at home. When I say bring hospital at home, what happens is that today we understand that in Indian healthcare system, if you see the number of hospital beds are totally limited. So we require almost like 6 to 8 million beds, which require almost like a investment of $20 billion plus. But then there's an alternate that is possible when we talk about how do we convert the home beds that we have into a hospital structure. Because the capex, the requirement and everything can be much be minimized if we use such a concept. So what we effectively do is help patients recover at home. When we talk about patients, these are critically chronic patients which they are either suffering from a neuro condition, post-stroke, post-cardiac arrest, Alzheimer, Parkinson, cancer, HIV. So all serious patients who require some or the other help at home, because the patient is actually at home itself. So how do we ensure that rather than him or her actually going to a hospital or a clinical setup, how do we ensure that the services that they were supposed to kind of consume, the service that was required to be catered to is available at home. So that's largely the concept. In terms of the offerings that we have offering for elder care, we have offering for patient care, post-surgery care, or post-ortho care, neuro conditions, supportive care. So these are some of the main offerings that we have for patients. We serve about 1,000 patients every day in Mumbai at this point in time, and we have an offering available in Delhi as well. So that's long and short. Get ready.
Lovely. That's a great idea in terms of there are so many people who wouldn't be, even if they have sometimes the money, but sometimes they wouldn't find space, they wouldn't find beds in hospital. And I've seen that it's happened with my family so many years ago. But there are two questions I want to ask you at this point. A, are you just in operations in metros? Is that yes? Just in Delhi and Bombay so far?
So at this point in time, we have concentrated more in these two cities. In the next 12 to 18 months, I think we should be in the next 10 cities. And I think we have much larger plan for Pan-India. That should kind of, you will see that in the next 5 years that we are expanding.
Lovely. That's one thing I want to come back to. But you're in the cities that you operate is Delhi and Bombay. I mean, there are already so many, I always put it this way, there are so many different type of hospitals depending on a person's needs or what a person can pay up. How do you compete with those people? How do you suddenly come to a locality and say, how do you spread the word around? We have a doctor on board, we have a mobile doctor, we have a mobile nurse, we have a mobile surgeon. How do you fight, how do you compete with these different category of healthcare services which are already present in cities like, say, Delhi or a Bombay, or in Bangalore for that matter?
Yeah. So at this point in time, I would say that we do not compete, we kind of collaborate. We become an extension of the hospital arm in some sense, like, post-surgery. People typically would need, say, care at home, and a hospital is a structure which is more of a real estate-based structure, right? I mean, you can cater to, say, a 2 kilometer, 5 kilometer radius kind of thing. But the patients that come to that hospital, especially say big hospitals, could be coming from very, far distances. And for the hospital structure, which is very, very confined to that place, to serve at those locations, post this surgery or the discharge has happened, is that's where the hospitals actually was saying that why don't you take the patient from here and take care, I mean, like in this extended arm of care that we call.
Vipin, I'll just stop you for a moment. Sorry, Vipin, there's a slight discontinuity. I think there's a network issue. Could you just rephrase the last part again a little bit?
So, see, we are saying that for a hospital structure, we are extension of the care arm, which is very well fit in a continuum of care. What we see is that the care does not stop at the surgery level or post discharge, and it has to continue till the complete recovery has happened. And that recovery can be very well, and what we do is like, do that recovery at home. So everyone is happy. The hospital is happy. The patient is happy. I think we are happy. So in the ecosystem, it is a win-win situation for everyone. From a competition standpoint, we obviously compete with the incumbent small bureaus, small structure, very fragmented. It's a $3 billion industry in India at this point in time. So there is a super fragmentation that has happened. And what we bring on the table is basically the standard and the quality across the board. So standard, by what I mean by standard and quality is that, sorry.
I just want one clarification I want at this part. So you said you not only compete with these folks, but you also collaborate with, say, a SAID hospital or a SAID medical institution. So how does that collaboration work? I mean, aren't these folks also your competition in the longer run? That's question A. And question 2 is that what about your own pool of, say, doctors, nurses, any kind of specialist under you? So where do you bring those folks? Are these people already who are working with current hospitals? You just collaborate, so the hospital gives you a particular doctor, they come on your board and they are treating you as a service model. Is that so?
So looking at the first part, there we don't see the competition happening with the hospitals in the next 3 to 4 years. So there are a lot of hospitals which do have this offering, under their name, and they typically partner with us to provide that service. So even if it is under the hospital's name, that okay, some hospital wants to have a home care extension also, they provider who has expertise in this distributed network of care. So I think there we again have a collaboration opportunity. From the perspective of how do I get the supply, the real expertise, we mostly have our own supply sourcing, where we onboard people directly from the market. People who are applying, like at this point in time, we have about 1,500 people who are working with us across, I say it would be doctors, physiotherapists, nurses, even in nurses, they have different categories. Even in physiotherapists, we have different categories depending on the condition that we have. Then we have a pool of paramedic people who are more on the supportive care, who are assisting people in their mobility and stuff like that.
Interesting. So where do you get these people from? Where do you get these? Because these are very specific niche skill sets, and how do you collaborate with these guys? Where do you pick these folks from? So how does this this hiring of these kind of skilled people come about?
Initially, it was a little difficult for us when we were trying to kind of enter the market. Getting the first 50, 100 people was super difficult because we didn't have a brand, we didn't have a name out there and stuff like that. We had to do a lot of activity for promotion for the supply part to come to us. We had all those on-ground activities that why home care makes sense. Why should you work with our home care, which is standardized and stuff like that. We took help from manpower.
Great. I'm so sorry, Chief. You're again breaking a little bit. I'm so sorry. Could you just come back again to just start the answer again? I just want to reiterate that to our viewers. Just start the answer again.
So the first part I was saying is that the initial pool of people, the first 1,500 was a little difficult for us, where we did not have the brand and stuff like that. Where we had to take help from the manpower service providers. A lot of blue-collar websites, job websites. Then we did a lot of on-ground promotion of these activities, like why should you join home care versus say a hospital and that kind of a care structure. Because what we promise to them is like, in your hyper local area, we should be able to give you a job. So, sir, somebody who's say staying in a very specific location like western line of Bombay, I should be able to give you a job which is very, very close to your locality, because and that kind of attracted initially the talent. Slowly, referral has become the largest channel for us. The people who are working with us, I think we are able to give them a better life quality, better, I think, pay grade. I think we are paying 30 to 40% more than what is available in the market. And the freedom to do the kind of job they want to do. So what happens is that a lot of people wanted only night shift, not the day shift, because a lot of female caregivers, especially, they had to take care of the families during the day, but in the night they were kind of more available for the job, and that is, say, something that is not available as an option in a other setup. So I think these freedom preferences kind of did attract the talent to us. Now I think we have got a referral channel where we just tell the people that, okay, why don't you guys invite your friends and the people whom you know. I think by that now we have more than 2,000 people who have come to us, working with us probably on a monthly basis.
So tell me, how do you quantify this quality of a particular skilled professional? I mean, now that you have so many people coming up to you and they want to work with you, I mean, whatever kind of speciality he or she would have in terms of this industries, how do you quantify, how do you go about checking their backgrounds? I mean, you're doing it now, the idea is, I mean, this kind of a model, you're trying to take it to a smaller town, to a tier 3 or tier 4 city. So how will you decide, on what basis do you decide this is a qualified individual, this is not a qualified individual?
So we see, this was a big question when we started, because when you are at home and when the services are happening, the first thing that customers, patient want is a trusted person and a qualified person for doing that job. Trust is a very, very big factor, because you are literally leaving at times a semi-mobile or an immobile patient with someone for long hours where no one else is around. So safety became a very, very big thing for us that we needed to manage very well. Second is the qualification part of it, because in the nursing there you have at least 3 grades: A&M, GNM, BSc, MSc nursing. There are 4 even in the nursing category we have these 3-4 certification. So what happens is that in fragmented structure, anyone is doing any job. So you will see a compounder actually putting a eye protection at places. So and not to say that, okay, and they have learned by seeing. But what we said is that we have to kill this process and we have to put a standard here. So from the safety perspective, we do a background verification which does 12 tests, including police, criminal record, court record checks. So at this verification, have they been staying there? We do a physical verification again. When we go there, we have got, say, a senior police retired person who goes there, make sure that that guy or the person does not have any habit which could be disturbing in nature, because I don't want an alcoholic in my company.
Correct. So
Those are some of the.
that's a great point. So also, are these folks also allowed to work in other medical institutions, or they are just contract bound to your organization? Because a lot of doctors do that, right? A lot of doctors have their own clinics outside. So how do you? I mean, I don't know how to put it. I mean, how do you stop that? A, do you want to stop that, or you already have put in a contract saying, "Boss, if you're a doctor with me, you're not working anywhere else. You can't have your own private clinic." Is that something of a thing with you guys?
See, here we have 2 different models. Like some people we take completely on contract, which are completely exclusive with us. Then some people we take more on a freelance model, which helps us to manage the variability, because say in some places like a speech therapist is a very, very specific demand. It's again a hyper local delivery. At the same time, the requirement and the demand could be not so much in volume. So one physiotherapist is someone who's required everywhere, but a speech therapist is a very specific thing which is required, say, in Down syndrome or in in a special child cases and stuff like that. So there we give them a freedom that, okay, why don't you allocate some hours to us, that we should be able to generate so much demand and give you the job and stuff like that. At the same time, you would be free for some hours to do your own practice because they already have, because we don't take anyone who's unexperienced. So experience means that they have their own base in some sense. So we have kind of adopted, I would say, model which is, I think this model has evolved over time. I don't say that it was the first day that we knew that, okay, this is a model that is going to work. So slowly over time, we have kind of changed the model to kind of freeze in this dual working style.
Absolutely interesting. So you fair play. So considering the fact that you have worked from ground up till a certain level in terms of these are the kind of people. These are doctors who are working with you. These are doctors who are not working. You're also working with their own private institutions. But having said that, what do you think are the issues like? What do you think are the issues ailing the medical system right now? Because you've seen it from ground up to a certain level. What do you think are the issues still? I mean, you have these. I call it $1 billion hospitals. I call them the 5-star hospitals. But when you actually require certain things to be done, you know what's happening in the country. Healthcare is not present. Proper medical care, healthcare is not present to a certain sect of the people in this country. So what ails the medical system in this country? What ails the healthcare system in the country? Now that you've seen in and out what this is, in terms of skill level, skill level of the doctors and the nurses and anybody associated with the field, B, in terms of infrastructure, what still ails this system, Chief? Hello, Chief, can you hear me? Vipin, can you hear me? Hello? I think there has been some technical difficulty in dialing in. Vipin, are you there? Can you hear us? Alright, I think we'll go to a short break while we try and connect with Vipin once again. So, all right, I think there were some minor technical glitches, and we sit here, we talk about these great ideas, but technology is something which we still can't depend on fully. But so back to you, Vipin, you were telling us what ails the healthcare system in the country. Vipin, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I believe the voice is cutting a bit. Is it good from my side?
Yeah, there's some disturbance, Vipin, but we can barely hear you.
Oh, is it better now? No.
It's a slight issue. So folks, we'll move into a quick break while we try to dial in Vipin once again. Stay tuned to the other side of the break. Welcome back, viewers. So, sorry for the technical glitches, which is something which none of us can control. We talk about a connected world, a digitized India, but this is what technology does to you when you depend too much on them. But more on that later. Back to you, Vipin, who was telling us, we were discussing about what ails the healthcare system in the country in spite of so many new things which are still happening. So, Vipin, just help us understand that. Out of your experience, what does this tell you about India and the healthcare system right now?
See, I think I would first talk about home care and then maybe healthcare in general.
Sure.
What I have home care space is that the largest challenge that we get is around the quality of people. and the professionalism. And second, I would say is the trust factor that there is a trust deficit overall that exists in the system. So on the first part, like the professionalism, and in India, it's a little new concept relatively. Say in US, it's a $100 billion industry. It has been in practice for like last 30 years. So all the standard protocols, everything has been defined. The people know that what they have to do, what they can communicate better in terms of infrastructure and stuff like that. So even a mobile adoption, I would say a very very simple thing. Like when you talk about a US or a China panel versus India, we still have the class of people that we are working with. They're not very comfortable on a smartphone. So how do you communicate? So the communication and stuff like that is not very sorted out. The professionalism level overall in general in this class, and especially when you're talking about a distributed network across services, I would not only call about say home care, but any services which are delivered over a distributed network, whether it is a taxi service, whether it is a on-demand home services and stuff like that. The quality and the professionalism is a challenge. Second part that is a big challenge is the trust deficit between the tri-party that I call. One is the patient or the consumer. Second is the institution, and third is the provider. So what happens is that if the in a hospital setup in US, the step down care is very very clear, where they know that okay, once the surgery has happened, there is a step down care, and they trust that okay, these providers are and are going to take care of people. That's where the insurance covers that. So 60% of the home care in US, you would see that is covered under insurance. When you come to India, you see that there's no home care coverage under insurance, and that kind of has. I mean, if it gets covered today, you will see that it becomes a $10 billion industry today itself. In India, the geriatric population, we never thought about in the last 60 years, I think, in terms of like the geriatric population that would increase, the old age population would increase, and how the nation kind of be prepared to handle that situation, which is a very, very large developed concept in US, Japan, even to some extent in China, to be honest. Australia is like, again, pretty developed. So I would say that is the trouble in India in terms of home care. If we talk about general, healthcare in India, I think 2-3 topics are a challenge. One is that the investment levels have not been high till now. So the infrastructure that exists, the number of doctors that you have, especially the consultant doctors per patient, is too low. We have like one doctor per 2,000 people in India, and that's such a almost a ridiculously low ratio that we have. Yes. And that until that changes, I think the accessibility of healthcare would remain a problem. Second is that healthcare spend in India has been low. So per person, we spend about $61 in India on healthcare every year, whereas in US it is $9,000. So even if you take the per PPP levels, it's like too low. It's just too low. So what happens is that the investment, and this is a vicious circle, right? The spend is low, so the investment is not coming because the ROI on the investment would not come. So you would see that literally any small inflow of money that happens in healthcare in India because of this reason, because the investor at the end of the day wants a return back on the money.
So to that point, I'll just hold you. I'll just let you continue. Just one point I want to ask. One question I have over here. So since we talked about investment and this part, so what is the difference compared to say a hospital? We're talking about hospital beds initially. So if I say for a heart issue, I have say for some heart ailment, I get admitted in the hospital, and I have to pay up around $150,000 for a week. What is the difference on your platform in terms of a price for say a middle class person who wants to take the same facilities back at home in terms of visiting of doctors or nurses or any other facilities on your platform, the price concept?
So I'll give you a very simple example. Like ICU care in a hospital costs anywhere, I mean in a metro city, anywhere between 40,000 a day to 90,000 per day. And this I'm talking on average.
Agreed.
And given the insurance condition in India, the coverage goes very, very fast, vanishes very, very fast. And that's where the trouble comes, like, the insurance would not cover to the full extent. And that's where the out-of-pocket expenses increase there. In a platform, Care24 platform, the same would go down to anywhere between 8,000 to 14,000. That's like, 70 to 80% cheaper from a consumer perspective, and that's where we are seeing a lot of traction in the critical care, where people know that okay, whether it is a ventilator care, whether it is like complete ICU setup at home with the intensivist monitoring it across time. But overall, we see that okay, 70 to 80% cheaper option we are able to provide at home.
Absolutely, absolutely. Also, a couple of last things, I mean, interestingly, the platform that you've created, I mean, this home healthcare, I mean, this is a completely unexplored territory. More and more when you move out to new towns, I mean, this tier 3, tier 4 places. Having said that, this also brings me to a very interesting aspect of this entire paradigm. Now, you're sitting on petabytes and petabytes of medical data, petabytes of healthcare data. Now, unfortunately, not much is talked about in India, especially related to data privacy. We have a consultation paper from a committee which came in last December, but that's just a consultation paper. But at your on your platform, at your side, how do you secure medical data? Because healthcare is a field. I mean, I mean, I've interacted with black hats. I've interacted with security professionals from across the world. I was in Ukraine 6 months ago, and the kind of things I saw, what was happening with medical data, and this is people sitting out of some place, some random places across Earth, and they're trying to steal healthcare data from somewhere down south, somewhere in North America, everywhere. And I can't name, unfortunately, but that scares me. It scares me. So, Chief, how are you looking at safeguarding the medical data at your end in terms of encryption, or it might be something else? What about safety of medical data?
So, very early on, we realized that one is that and today or tomorrow, the HIPAA is going to be very, very be strongly coming to India also. Like today, India being India, we always feel that okay, what is data privacy? Anyways, everyone knows about this condition, blah blah. So we kind of give it to very easy. But at the same time, what we adopted was, I mean, we are very very strong on tech. So we are primarily a tech plus medical folks who have started this company. So from a tech perspective, today I do not have access to a single phone number of any customer, to be honest. Like even anyone in my system, anyone who's not exposed to that service, like somebody who has got the signed right from the consumer that okay, I'll expose this data to this person because he's taking care of you, because he needs to understand a medical condition, depending on say whether it is a nurse or a doctor or a physician. No one else would have access to that data because every single data is encrypted. From a perspective of even the cloud, we have got double SSL encryption in place. So that, and there has not been a single breach till now in the last 3 years, by and large, because of the focus that we had from the day zero that okay, not a single data has to can go from our system outside. No one is exposed. No one knows about starting from the phone number to a customer name to anything. We just do not disclose it to anyone. I think that extraordinary focus around that area has kind of prevented a lot of any kind of leakage to be honest.
So is all your data residing in servers outside the country, or have you taken services from some vendor which provide only India? So all your medical data is within the boundaries of the country.
We cannot, I mean, so to be honest, like people do that kind of a breach, but for us, every data is at our location only. We do not expose that data to any third party outside country cloud.
Lovely, lovely. One last thing, I've read about a lot about you folks, and even in the competition. I mean, it really amazes me what you're trying to do, and it's really heartening to see the kind of work you're doing. But one last thing, at the end of the day, I'm looking at you as a tech platform which is enabling people in this country. Now, I understand you have this amazing pool of medical professionals, right? On the second hand, I was reading a lot of media reports in the last 6 months. You've talked a lot about using gadgets, using these tech devices which will help in the medical care. What are you exactly talking about in terms of these devices?
Yeah, see, what we slowly, healthcare, I mean, if we see the trend, what would happen and what is required to happen is that healthcare has to become a consumer thing. So today, and luckily, I mean, these gadgets have been coming, right? Whether it is a wellness area, fitness area, You see all these gadgets, whether it is a Fitbit or Goki or and the stuff which can actually monitor that whether your BP is low, high, heartbeat, and stuff like that, which has actually got a very, as in, I would say, that decent traction in the space. So healthcare would shift to a consumer-led, consumer-controlled environment, and there we see that as many do-it-yourself devices we can give. So today I'll give you an example, like a blood pressure monitor. So if I send a nurse to somebody's home and get that blood pressure checked, I charge like $500 for that. For the same person to get that blood pressure checked every single morning, if he buys the equipment, which is $1,300, it is free. So now, if you see the economy within the second session, and their number of medical professionals are limited at the end of the day. And that is not going to increase very soon. To be honest, with the kind of healthcare demand is increasing, I don't think we are matching the pace. Well, I mean, though we are trying, like NSDC is trying, we are talking to ministry and stuff like that to increase that workforce, but that workforce would be a limiting factor. And there we will see that a lot of these end monitoring devices need to go in the hand of the consumer so that they can, not only monitor, but they can actually maintain their health. And that's where a lot of these equipment, so whether it is a SpO2 levels, whether it is a ventilator that is available, whether it is CPAP, BiPAP. So every other equipment has got now into a format, and slowly we are developing those with some people, that it should become a consumer thing. It should not be limited to workforce and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Healthcare should be a consumer thing. Lovely. Vipin, thank you so much for joining us on the show today and helping us understand how you're trying to change the healthcare situation and home healthcare situation in India. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks a lot, Ezra, for this. Yeah.
So viewers, thank you so much for tuning in to us. That was Vipin Pathak from Care24 explaining us how his organization is slowly and gradually trying to change the home healthcare situation in India. Until next time, this is Aritra and you're watching The Big Scope.